This lesson is for NCP 201. The focus skill is to recognize equivalent fractions as well as rewrite fractions in their lowest terms. So just to help us understand the idea of equivalent fractions, I have some diagrams with different shapes that are shaded in they are shaded the exact same amount, but the way that they're divided is a little different. So if we take a look at these first two squares here, this first square is cut up into 4 parts. 3 of those parts are shaded, so I have 3/4 of the square shaded in. Now in the second picture, I have more parts. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts, and 6 of those parts are shaded in. These are equivalent fractions. 3/4 is the same as 6/8. So our goal is to be able to rewrite this in terms of the lowest amount, which would be 3/4 here. Now in the next circle, we have 1/2 of the circle shaded in, which is equivalent over here to, since this halves, 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 parts, right? 10 total parts, and 5 are shaded in. 1/2 is equivalent to 5/10. In the next example, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts, and of those 6 parts, 4 are shaded in. And in the second picture here, you've got 3 total parts with 2 being shaded in. So 4/6 is equal to 2/3. Now, this is just to help you visualize and kind of understand what we're doing with just the math. So this is what we're focusing on here. This is just a picture that illustrates that concept. Okay? So let's take a look at the first examples here. It says to fill in the blank to find the equivalent fraction. Okay, so 4/8 is equal to some number over 2. Now, what I like to do in order to do these kind of questions is look at the number 8 and how it's changed to become a 2. To change an 8 into a 2, we need to divide by 4. That's the operation that happens in order to change that number into a 2. So I need to make sure I do the same thing to the numerator. I'm going to divide by 4. So 4 divided by 4 becomes 1. That's the number that makes the equivalent expression here. So 4/8 is equal to 1/2. In number 2, now it's kind of a little bit different. How do we change 8 into a 16? Well, to change an 8 to a 16, we have to multiply by 2. So I'm going to multiply the numerator here as well by 2, and I end up with 14. So 14/16 is equivalent to 7/8. These are equivalent fractions. So 4/8 over here was equal to 1/2. These are your equivalent fractions. Now, you are also going to be asked to rewrite something in lowest terms as well. So here, there is no, complete the fraction. You need to be able to just rewrite this and figure out how to rewrite it in its lowest term. So I'm going to show you a little trick. What you can do if you have 2 even numbers is to start with a number like 2, because both of these are even. It will be divisible by 2, and you're just going to divide the numerator and the denominator by 2, and you keep going until you can't do that anymore. So 32 divided by 2 gives me 16. 48 divided by 2 gives me 24. Now I still have an even number, so I'm going to continue to divide by 2. I end up with 8. Divide by 2 in the denominator, I end up with 12. And again, 8 and 12, since this is both of these are even numbers, I can continue to divide by 2. And I end up with 4/6. Again, I'm going to divide by 2. And I end up with 2/3. This is the equivalent fraction here written in lowest terms, so 32/48 is the same as 2/3. Now, some of you might be able to recognize the greatest common factor between 32 and 48. That number was 16. So if I had known that right away, I could just divide 32 by 16 as well as 48 divided by 16, and I would have ended up with 2/3. But since I don't necessarily know what the greatest common factor is, this trick of dividing by 2 each time, so we did that, we kept getting a smaller number, and then we divided by 2 again, we got a smaller number. This lets us do that without actually knowing how to find the greatest common factor right away. So either way, you get the same answer. Now what's nice is you could also use your calculator to do this. Now not all of us have this TI calculator here, but let's say I wanted to find out how to write that same fraction, 32/68, in smallest terms. What I'm going to do is divide 32 by 48, so I have 32/48. That's the fraction here that we were just working with. I'm going to hit enter. Now I get a decimal, and I want to change that decimal into a fraction. So what I can do is hit this key here, the math key, hit math, and then the option for fraction comes up. You're going to hit enter, and then enter one more time, and now it's going to change that into a fraction of 2/3. So you do see the same answer here, 32/48 equals 2/3. Now since not all of us have that calculator, you're still going to have to know how to do this without that TI-84. Now in number 4, that trick is not going to work, right? Neither of these two numbers, well, only the numerator is an even number, the denominator is not. So there is a common factor between 14 and 49. So what I want you to do, in case you don't know what the greatest common factor is right away, look at the numerator and start writing factors of your numerator. So 2 times 7 is what gives me 14, and then you're going to think of what gives you 49. 7 times 7 gives you 49. So if I rewrote that as 2 times 7 over 7 times 7, I can cancel out one of these 7's here, and that will leave me with 2 7's. This is the fraction 14/49 written in smallest terms, in the lowest terms here. Okay, so alternatively, let's say you have 14/49, and right away you knew that 7 was a common factor between these two. You can divide each of these numbers by 7 to get 2, and divide this by 7 and get 2 7's. So you get the same thing no matter what way you do it. That's the lesson for NCP 201.